Did you know that despite being the world's most powerful military force, the United States was brought to its knees by a small Southeast Asian nation? It all began with a divided nation. After World War II, Vietnam was split into two. North Vietnam, led by the communist revolutionary Ho Chi Minh, backed by the Soviet Union and China, and South Vietnam, an anti-communist government supported by the United States. The U.S., driven by the domino theory, the belief that if one country in Southeast Asia fell to communism, the rest would follow, was determined to prevent North Vietnam from conquering the South. In 1955, the U.S. began sending military advisors, and by the 1960s it escalated into a full-scale conflict. At first, it seemed like victory was inevitable for the U.S. With its advanced technology, superior weaponry, and massive financial resources, America was confident of a quick and decisive win. The U.S. launched massive bombing campaigns, including Operation Rolling Thunder, dropping more explosives on Vietnam than were used during all of World War II. Helicopters, napalm, and chemical defoliants were deployed, aiming to destroy the thick jungles and expose the enemy. Yet despite their firepower, the U.S. struggled to make progress. The Viet Cong, fighters from the south, mastered guerrilla tactics, blending with civilians, using intricate tunnel systems, and launching surprise ambushes. The U.S. soldiers couldn't tell friend from foe. Traps, hidden explosives, and sudden attacks haunted them daily. The dense jungles gave the Viet Cong a massive advantage. Then came the Tet Offensive in 1968, a turning point that shattered the illusion of American dominance. During the Tet holiday, the North Vietnamese launched a massive surprise attack on over 100 cities, including the U.S. Embassy in Saigon. Although the U.S. pushed back the offensive, it revealed the strength and resilience of the North Vietnamese. Back home, Americans were shocked to see the scale of the violence on their TV screens. Public support for the war plummeted. The Vietnam War was the first television war. Graphic images of the conflict, burning villages, and suffering civilians were broadcast into American homes. The tragic My Lai incident, where U.S. soldiers killed hundreds of unarmed Vietnamese civilians, sparked global outrage. Protests erupted across the U.S., with students demonstrating against the conflict and chanting, "Bring our troops home!" The once patriotic support for the war turned into mass opposition. To make matters worse, the harsh jungle terrain became a nightmare for American soldiers. The Ho Chi Minh Trail, an intricate network of supply routes through Laos and Cambodia, allowed the North Vietnamese to keep receiving supplies. Despite massive U.S. bombing campaigns, the trail remained active. But perhaps the greatest reason for the U.S. defeat was underestimating the Vietnamese spirit. The U.S. viewed Vietnam as a small, rural country, failing to recognize their fierce nationalism and unwavering determination. The Vietnamese people were willing to sacrifice everything for their independence, while U.S. soldiers grew disillusioned and weary. By the early 1970s, the U.S. had begun to withdraw its troops, leaving the war largely in the hands of the South Vietnamese. In 1973, a peace agreement was signed, and the U.S. pulled out. But just 2 years later, in April 1975, Saigon fell to the North Vietnamese army. The Vietnam War was over, with the Communists victorious. The aftermath was devastating. Over 58,000 American soldiers lost their lives, and more than 2 million Vietnamese were affected. The war shattered the U.S.'s image of invincibility, proving that military might doesn't guarantee victory. The Vietnam War was not just a military conflict. It was a test of ideology, resilience, and human willpower. Despite its technological and military superiority, the U.S. was ultimately defeated by the determination, tactics, and unwavering spirit of the Vietnamese. It remains a powerful reminder that even the most dominant nations can be challenged by a people's unyielding fight for freedom. If you found this story fascinating, don't forget to like and share Aster POLO TV for more eye-opening historical tales.